Hey, it's the Bet Las Vegas and Audacy Sports. And first and foremost, before I even introduce my guest for all of us listening, Marcus, you know what? I'm gonna just do it now. Marcus Johnson's here. He's at the NFL Combine, which means, unfortunately for him, he's in Indianapolis right now. If you could, I don't know if you're on your phone, I don't know if you're on your laptop. Can you give me the sights and sounds of Indy? Like, can you show me the outside or no?
Yeah, actually, man.
Live from the NFL Combine. Look at that. Prime time Indianapolis. So, first and foremost, can you confirm or deny there's St. Elmo's Steakhouse and just one Applebee's, and that's all you got to eat? True or
No,
false?
that is not that is not true, man. There's a lot of places to eat out here, actually. A lot of good places too, man. But this place called District Taps, pretty damn good. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Indianapolis getting some energy. How about this one? Other than the people there at the NFL Combine and Tyrese Halliburton and Miles Turner, are there any other African Americans in that city right now?
Well, it's kind of surprising, I guess, because Gary, Indiana is not that far. I mean, there's a lot of black people over here, especially the workers. It's kind of surprising, to be honest. I mean, yeah, like people that work. I mean, probably like since I'm downtown, and the people that are working and walking around, there's some white people, but like the in the mall and stuff, a lot of people, the workers in there, yeah, they're all
Hey, you bring up Gary, Indiana. Shout out to Freddie Gibbs, the God MC. All right, Gangsta Gibbs is in the building. He will be recognized on this show. All right, let me calm down on all the Indianapolis hate. I'm just trying to bring another event to Vegas. Is really what I'm trying to do.
yeah. I feel it. I feel it.
Let's start off as today's day one of the combine. Let's go a couple days back. I believe it was earlier this week on Tuesday. I think it was Josh McDaniels did a press conference and spoke to the media, talked about what he's looking for in a future quarterback, talked about Josh Jacobs and that contract extension that the Raiders want him to sign. What'd you make of everything he said?
It's just very vague, man. Nothing really crazy. He had some interesting comments about Bryce Young and size and stuff like that, but we'll see how they really feel about people's size and where the quarterbacks go. I weren't really interested to see the measurements, but didn't really go too in depth into anything. He talked about making importance for Darren Waller, which I thought was interesting, but we'll see how that goes as it goes along. But nothing too crazy. I thought it was interesting. He talked about he wanted a quarterback that his system will fit the quarterback, and I think a lot of people kind of interpreted that as he's going to build around the quarterback, and I kind of looked at it like he's going to find a quarterback that fits his system, and not really somebody that he has to build the system around. So. Nothing crazy. It's just very vague. So nothing wild that anybody could really jump onto.
Yeah, a lot of coach speak. I do want to ask you, when it comes to McDaniels and talking about his system, do you give him any credence or credit for like having to adjust when he was the OC with the Patriots, going from like Cam Newton to Mac Jones and kind of making it work?
Uh, yeah, I think there's a little bit of adjustment there, but I mean, with Cam Newton, I still think he didn't run him enough, or have more enough designs that way, or there's much creativity in the run game, even though he wants a quarterback like that. So, I think that he has to um, kind of update his system a little bit, and I think that's important because I think a lot of the teams in the NFL have an idea of what he likes to do on certain downs and certain looks, and he's got to adjust and try to be on top of what the NFL thinks of them and their offensive scheme because I think they got some issues there. I mean, especially later on in the season, a lot of teams were like knew what they were going to run and were able to stop it. So, yeah, they got to get past those tails, get more motions, get more teams off guard a little bit. So you just got to update it, in my opinion.
And I want to skip forward to some of my questions because, you bring up the quarterback philosophy that McDaniels was talking about. You bring up Bryce Young's size. And like when I look at the landscape of the NFL, right? I look at Lamar Jackson. People were worried that he was undersized, more that he was like skinny and not bulked up enough to take the hits and stuff. And obviously, he got to the NFL and did get strength. You look at Baker Mayfield, you look at Kyler Murray, and people were like, "Hey, things are changing." Even Russell Wilson, I should have mentioned him first. But then you see Russell Wilson, he's 31 years old, and last year, like the drop off in his career went 180 all the way down. Baker Mayfield might not be that good. Kyler Murray, we don't know. So I feel like what people are looking for in a quarterback is kind of up in the air, and with the Raiders looking for their next QB, whether it's the draft, whether it's free agency, like kind of what are your thoughts on that, on the landscape of quarterbacks in general, and then if you could transition into what do you think, or what do you think's best for the Raiders to do in handling the situation this offseason?
Yeah, I think the landscape of the NFL, quarterbacks are just really young right now. I think we're going to see a lot of guys be overrated better than they actually are on the field, just because they're young buzz around them. I mean, I think the perfect example is Trevor Lawrence. I see him top 10 all the time. Trevor Lawrence did not overall play top 10 quarterback play last year. It just didn't happen. But since he's Trevor Lawrence, #1 draft pick, all that cool stuff, he's going to be put up there with the top sevens and all those guys. Because I mean, who are you going to put over him? If you put Kirk Cousins over Trevor Lawrence, you're making a cool list to kind of get people excited for your quarterback breakdowns. You're not going to do that if you're just being completely objective. So I think that's going to be the landscape of the NFL. And I think with the shorter quarterbacks, I think there's still not really a lot of them that are good to even kind of take that step to say that you can still keep going and make sure that's not a limitation for a quarterback. You see in the middle of the field, it's going to be tough for any of these shorter quarterbacks. Bryce Young did a really good job of it at Alabama, but he did a lot of kind of fading in the pocket. And what that does is, if you push the pocket instead of trying to just kind of go around the corner, you can get him fading, you get some easy sacks. So that happens to Kyler Murray a lot. And I think Bryce Young has that little bit of an issue too. But I mean, he knows he's short and plays like he does know he's short. So I think that's something I like about him, but it's a limitation no matter what. And I don't care what anybody says. People can try to act like it's, you whatever. But there's not a lot of good quarterbacks that are under 6 foot. It just isn't through the history of the NFL. And if you go to Kyler Murray is very inconsistent. And like I said, he kind of got the overrated thing that Trevor Lawrence is getting when you're just a cool young quarterback and everybody pushing the top 10, even though you're not playing that well. So
Jalen Hurts is 6'1", right?
yeah, Jalen Hurts 6'1".
Well, I kind of think that he's Jalen, like specifically like with his squats and everything, like kind of counteracting. Like you may not be the tallest, but the fact that he is so strong to be able to take some of those hits is mighty impressive. And since we're talking about buzz, and basically this is what the combine is, to build buzz for all these dudes. And before we get into what you're looking at for the Raiders, rather, I know what Raiders Twitter's been looking at this past week, which is this clip of Anthony Richardson throwing a bomb against FSU. And look,
Yeah.
nice ass play. I'm not hating on the dude, but I
Yeah.
know that the Gators were ass last year. And more
Yeah.
importantly, I know FSU was even more ass. Can we relax, or am I bugging?
I think Anthony Richardson is a really good prospect. I do. I really think that he has a chance to be a really good player in the NFL. I think he has a chance to be a top 5 guy if he hits his ceiling, just because his skill set is ridiculous. And, a lot of things he has, you can't teach, like his pocket presence is nuts. He has a really good field vision, really good understanding of coverages. It's just a lot of it with him is mechanics and fixing his feet. Will he ever be like a 65% completion percentage guy? I don't know. But I think a lot of it you can build around it because Josh Allen really isn't. Josh Allen's a 63% guy. He's 64%, but you're still things that he can do that Josh Allen can do that just are unstoppable. And I think Anthony Richardson has some of those aspects. And I think he had better pocket presence than Josh Allen coming out. So he avoids a lot of sacks. So you can have like a bad offensive line. You can get away with it while he learns to put more touch in the football and become a better passer in short areas. Because he's pretty good from past 10 yards. As a thrower, past 10 yards, he's all right. It's just below 10 yards is when the problem is, which is I don't know what that's about, but it really is about his feet and stuff like that. But I think he has a chance to be really good in the NFL because what you can do with him early is run the damn football, and he's so big, he's not gonna get hurt. He can take big hits, right? Just like Josh Allen did. So, he reminds me more of Cam Newton than Josh Allen, but I think he has a really, really high upside. And to be honest, I said this a long time ago on some of my other quarterback podcasts that I won't rule out him being the first quarterback taken. And I think that buzz is starting to grow as we get to this process, and especially if he's on the board killing it, writing up plays, which I think he might be. So
All right, so I'm just gonna see that tweeted out more throughout this entire process. Marcus Johnson joining us. Be sure to follow him on Twitter at the Mark John NFL, talking about his podcast. Go check out Tape Don't Lie on YouTube as well, and A Little Pocket Awareness, the QB podcast. And before we get into the Raiders outlook, and I kind of wanted you on the show as like you're basically the combine for dummies, teaching us like, hey, this is what to look out for. And before we get
yeah.
into what the Raiders fans should be looking out for you specifically this week, and looking at everyone, kind of going inside your brain, like what are the big standout things that you're looking for in these players?
Definitely, how they handle the interviews. I think how they handle themselves when they're doing the press conferences. I think you want to hear some of these answers. You can find out like what kind of person they are, and and I think that translates to what type of player they are. Like in that you can get some red flags and stuff just from being paying attention to how they answer things, how they handle answers, how they handle questions. And you can tell who has a leadership, who can speak well and stuff like that. I mean, the biggest thing for me, I think at the combine is the measurables. I mean, people try to act like, oh, it's all about the film, but with it's this thing called RAS that Math Bomb does. I don't know if you ever seen that at Math Bomb. Shout out to him. Does this thing called RAS, right, which is a relative athletic score, and with that score, what happens is, he's found out that about 75% of NFL players, or my bad, 85% of NFL players have a score higher than 5 in athleticism. So it's important, man. If this guy is under a 5 in his little score, it's not good. If those guys, and he said most of like the best players are all over 70, right? 70% percentile for athleticism. So it's important. And I think that's the big thing when you're watching this combine is, the better the athlete, the better chance of him being a good pro football player. So you got, it's all about traits, and some of these guys have the traits, and maybe their film might be a little inconsistent, but they have these high level traits. You guys have these guys who have good film but really bad traits. You really have to lean towards the athletic traits. So that's why I think the importance of the combine.
And then in terms of the Raiders and their outlook, if you could just, I guess, name a couple players that fans should be like, hey, let's look out for him. He'd be a great addition to the team and helping out.
Yeah, I think there's some different, players the Raiders are really going to be looking at this week. I think cornerback is going to be a position. They really looked at linebacker and defensive line. I mean, everybody they had a lot of formal visits with a lot of these guys, defensive linemen and these linebackers, and I think they have a lot of chance to kind of, build up defense a little bit if they decide to go veteran quarterback. And of course, you're going to be looking at a quarterback. I really think they're going to lean to the SEC. If they're, we're talking about quarterbacks, we're going to find out a little bit more tomorrow who they had formal visits with. I'm sure they did everybody because it's really a stupid question tomorrow, in my opinion. But I think what they're looking for is some linebackers because they don't have a good linebacker on the roster right now. I mean, you could say Divide Diablo, whatever, but they don't have a middle linebacker that fits Patrick Graham's system. That's why I think they had a formal visit with Noah Sewell because he was, I think he's about 246 right now. He was showing. So he's got that size to play linebacker in the system. So that might be somebody to look at. And, Jack Campbell, too, from Iowa. But, of course, the quarterback is going to be the big thing. But I really feel like they're going to be leaning SEC, in my opinion. So whether that's Levis or Anthony Richardson, I really feel like they might lean there over maybe a CJ Stroud. So we'll see how that goes. I just know they're big SEC fans. 3 out of the 5 draft picks last year. Three out of the Yeah, I think 3 out of the 5, whatever they had. I think they had
You're
5.
convinced they're going quarterback with their first pick, aren't you?
A little bit. A little bit, yeah. I think they're going to try to go quarterback because I think there's going to be a feel of where these guys go. I know everybody thinks all 4 quarterbacks go top 10. That's every mock draft you'll see in history of time until the draft starts. But we all know that's not how it really goes. It's only happened once in NFL history. So like we're a lot of people just want these historic things to happen. And I think we might even see like 2, maybe 3. And I think somebody's going to fall to the Raiders at 7, a quarterback that they're really going to like, in my opinion, because especially with the Jalen Carter news. I think a lot of other players could be taken at some of those other spots. Somebody might reach for a tackle. I think somebody's going to try to take a tackle early. That always happens. Tackles go earlier than people think, because that's a premium position that people really like. Same thing with cornerback. I think a lot of these cornerbacks, especially after we watch them run tomorrow, I think we're going to see a lot of these guys go really, really, really high, especially with the impact of like Sauce Gardner, J.C. Horns, those type of players early on. So I think the Raiders have a chance to have somebody fall to them, and it could be Will Levis, which I think Will Levis could go a little higher than people think, but it might be Anthony Richardson, but we'll see. It all depends on where these guys weigh too. I think they have some measurements that they like to hit, so I'm watching that. I'm really watching the quarterback measurements. So I'm really just kind of will help me figure out who exactly they're going to look at because they can lie and say they like Bryce Young, but they got measurements.
And before we get out of here, I guess my last question will be this. And you brought up McDaniels did mention and he talked about Darren Waller. And of course, the rumors about Darren Waller and Hunter Renfro kind of being on the trade block. Ultimately, do you see them either or being traded during the draft?
Uh I could see it because the Raiders need draft picks. They need high picks, and for Darren Waller, you're getting a second or third. right? I think they need more of those. Hunter Renfro, I don't know what you're gonna get for Hunter. Maybe with a team that really values a slot receiver and needs one. I think you can probably get a third from him too. So I lean more towards Darren Waller because Darren Waller's older. Hunter Renfro's a younger player. I think there's still more upside that you can use with him in this offense. But I do feel like I think there's too many targets for Josh McDaniels, and how to work it out, how to spread the football. I think he struggle with that a little bit because I mean he's every guy he could equal out getting the same amount of targets. When you have a dog like Devontae Adams, you got to have secondary players, and I always feel like Darren Waller is not a secondary player. Like he is. But you can't have like a third option that needs targets, with Darren Waller and Devontae
And that
Adams.
money that he's owed.
Yeah, exactly. If it was just Darren Waller and Devontae Adams, no Hunter Renfrow, I think it would work. But once you add in all those guys, I think you have to mix it up a little bit. Maybe get a tight end that doesn't get as many targets, to keep him happy. So it'll be interesting to see how they move going forward with that.
Well, look, before we get you out of here, no disrespect to, well, full disrespect to Indianapolis, no disrespect to Gary, Indiana, no disrespect to Freddie Gibbs. One more time, can we see the skyline? Can we get the skyline one more time? Look at that. The NFL Combine boosting the economy of that city because no one cares about the Pacers. Marcus Johnson joining us. Be sure to follow him on Twitter at the Mark John NFL. He's like, let me put my earbuds on because if someone hears me out here, you know what I'm saying? You're making it hot out here. Be sure to also check out Silver and Black Pride and his podcast, A Little Pocket Awareness to QB podcast, and on YouTube, Tape Don't Lie. Absolutely phenomenal stuff teaching us the game. Marcus Johnson, as always, thank you for the time, brother.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.